I never thought my life would take such a wild turn. It all started with my dog, Max. He was a good boy, a golden retriever who loved everyone. But the day Emily came home late from work, he started barking like crazy. I remember thinking, what the hell is going on? Max usually greets her with tail wags and slobbery kisses, but this time he was on high alert as if he sensed something I couldn't. Our marriage was solid, or so I thought. Emily and I had been together for 6 years, and we had built a life that felt comfortable. We had our ups and downs, sure, but we always managed to work through things. But lately, I'd noticed her being distant, more absorbed in her phone, brushing off my attempts to connect, and spending late hours at the office. She claimed it was just work stress, but I had a nagging feeling that something else was brewing underneath the surface. That evening, as I watched Max bark and growl at Emily, I felt my stomach drop. It was just a dog, right? But his instincts were sharper than mine. I pushed the thought away, chalking it up to a phase. After all, she had been under a lot of stress at work, and maybe Max was just feeling uneasy about her long hours. The next few days passed in a blur of routine. Emily seemed to return to her usual self, but I couldn't shake that moment with Max. I started paying closer attention. I noticed small things. Her phone was always face down. She was suddenly more concerned about her appearance, and her lingering scent of perfume was different. I brushed off the changes, convincing myself that I was just being paranoid. But then came the day I stumbled onto her lies, and it hit me like a freight train. I was cleaning out the garage when I found an old box filled with old papers, and there it was, an unreturned text message notification on her phone left on the counter. I picked it up, my heart racing. It was from a guy named Derek, someone I had never heard of. The message read, "Can't wait to see you tonight. I'll bring the wine." My heart sank. I felt a mix of anger and confusion. It couldn't be what I thought, could it? I had to confront her. So that evening when she got home, I was ready. I didn't hold back. I asked her about Derek, about the late nights, about everything. She denied it, called me paranoid, and even threw in a few accusations about me being insecure. But that bark from Max echoed in my mind. I pressed harder, demanding the truth. Emily's demeanor shifted. She went from defensive to hostile. "Why are you so obsessed with my phone? Maybe if you paid more attention to me, I wouldn't need to seek out excitement elsewhere." Her eyes flashed with anger, but underneath I could see a hint of fear. Maybe my confrontation was the push she needed to let her guard down. I could almost hear her thoughts, the excuses lining up in her mind. "It's just work," she said. "You're being ridiculous." But I didn't feel ridiculous. I felt hurt, betrayed, and more than a little angry. The emotional impact was swift. I went from shock to a boiling rage within seconds. It was like a switch had flipped in my mind. I always believed in the sanctity of marriage and loyalty, and here was the woman I thought I knew throwing it all away for some excitement. I felt like a fool, questioning every moment we shared. There was no way this was going to end quietly. I could feel the wheels in my mind turning, plotting my next move. This was not just about me anymore. It was about standing up for myself, about reclaiming my dignity. I promised myself that I wouldn't let this slide. I wasn't going to be the victim in this story. So, what was next? How would I confront this betrayal? It would require a lot of strategy and planning, but I was determined to make her understand the gravity of her actions. I needed to show her that there were consequences to her choices, and I couldn't let this go without a fight. I took a deep breath and decided to gather my thoughts. I had to think clearly. This wasn't just about revenge. It was about understanding what this meant for my future and how to move forward, no matter what decision I would eventually make. In the days following our confrontation, I felt like I was living in a fog. Emily went about her routine, acting as though nothing was wrong, while I was left grappling with the chaos in my mind. I watched her interact with Max, who, despite his earlier warning, still adored her without reservation. It was infuriating. The disparity between our worlds felt almost suffocating. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was in the midst of a terrible dream, one that I couldn't wake up from. Each night I stayed up late, the weight of betrayal keeping me awake. I scrolled through social media, often seeing couples posting their happy moments, and each post felt like a dagger to my heart. I thought of how I once looked at those posts and felt joy, but now they only served as a reminder of what I was losing. In those quiet hours, I began to formulate my plan for revenge. I wanted to expose her hypocrisy, to make her see that cheating was not a game she could play without consequences. But I needed to do it in a way that wouldn't make me seem petty. I wanted to be smart about it, to show her what she was risking. I started doing a little digging. I discovered that Emily had been spending more time with her work friends than I realized, and a few of them were more than just colleagues. One evening, I decided to casually ask her about her day, feigning interest while subtly gathering information. She told me about a night out with her coworker friends, and when I pressed for details, she seemed flustered but quickly deflected, insisting it was just a casual night. Yet I could see the unease in her eyes. The more I investigated, the more I learned. I found out that Derek was one of the more charming guys in her office, a smooth talker with a reputation for flirting. It became clear that she had been lying about the nature of their relationship. I felt a mixture of anger and sadness. I knew that I couldn't let her walk away from this unscathed. I devised a plan. I would set up a fake meeting with one of her friends under the pretense of discussing work matters. I had to be careful and strategic, ensuring that I wouldn't draw too much attention to my actions. I wasn't just looking for revenge. I wanted clarity and closure. I wanted Emily to understand the full breadth of her betrayal. So I reached out to Sarah, a friend of Emily's who I knew wouldn't hesitate to talk. I told her I needed some advice on a project and requested a meeting. It felt like a gamble, but I had to know if Emily had been sharing her infidelity with anyone else. When we met, I played the innocent husband role, pretending to be clueless about the undercurrents in our marriage. To my dismay, Sarah revealed more than I had anticipated. She confirmed that Emily had been acting differently lately, talking about how she felt unappreciated in our marriage and how Derek was just a friend who made her feel alive. The more Sarah spoke, the more I could feel the anger simmering inside me. I wanted to scream that this wasn't just about feeling alive. It was about trust and commitment. That night, after my conversation with Sarah, I felt empowered yet crushed. Emily was using her feelings of dissatisfaction to justify her actions, and I wouldn't let her manipulate me any longer. I kept replaying Sarah's words in my mind. While I accepted that there were issues in our marriage, they didn't justify her choices. I decided it was time to confront Emily again, but this time I wouldn't go in blind. I had information. I had proof of her betrayal, and I was ready to lay it all out on the table. I wasn't going to let her twist the narrative in her favor. I wanted her to understand that this wasn't just a fleeting moment of weakness. It was a complete breakdown of everything we had built together. I plotted the confrontation carefully, knowing I needed to remain calm and collected. The idea was to catch her off guard, to show her that I was in control of the situation. I would lay out everything I knew, from the late nights to the texts from Derek, and I would be ready for whatever excuse she had in store. As I prepared myself mentally, I felt the flicker of hope that maybe this confrontation could lead to something productive. Perhaps we could face our issues head-on, or maybe, just maybe, this would be the end of our time together. Either way, I was done living in the shadows of her lies. I was ready to bring the truth into the light. The day of the confrontation hung heavy in the air. I had spent the entire morning pacing around the house, rehearsing what I would say to Emily. My heart raced as I thought about how to phrase everything perfectly. I had collected my thoughts, my proof, and I was ready to lay it all bare. Emily came home later than usual that evening, her usual bright smile dimmed by the weight of her secrets. I could see that she was trying to act normal, joking about her day at work and asking me about mine. But I wasn't in the mood for small talk. The tension in the room was palpable, every second dragging as I waited for the right moment to strike. Finally, I couldn't hold it in any longer. I took a deep breath and said, "We need to talk." Her smile faltered and I could see the flicker of nerves cross her face. I gestured for her to sit down. She looked confused, maybe even a little scared, but I could tell she was trying to keep her composure. "Is everything okay?" she asked, her voice slightly shaky. "Not really," I replied, my tone steady. I found a message on your phone from Derek. I watched as her expression shifted from confusion to dread, a quick flash of recognition in her eyes. I pressed on, not wanting to give her a chance to deny anything. I also talked to Sarah and she confirmed what I suspected. You've been spending more time with him. What's going on, Emily? She opened her mouth to speak, but nothing came out. I could see the gears turning in her head, searching for an excuse. Finally, she stammered, "It's not what you think. He's just a friend. We've been working on some projects together, that's all. Just a friend." I shot back, unable to hide the anger in my voice. "You don't text friends, can't wait to see you tonight unless there's something else going on." I held my phone up, the evidence glaring back at her. "How long has this been going on?" Her face went pale, and for a moment I thought I could almost see her internal struggle. She looked like she was caught between the urge to defend herself and the realization that she had been found out. It was just a mistake. I was feeling suffocated and he was there for me. It didn't mean anything. Didn't mean anything. I echoed, disbelief washing over me. "You think betrayal and lies don't mean anything. You're telling me that this was just a fling. You're throwing away everything we've built together for a friend." Emily's eyes darted around the room, searching for something. "I didn't want to hurt you. I thought I could get my feelings sorted out without dragging you into it. I thought I could fix things." Fix things. I was incredulous. "You think cheating is the answer to fixing our marriage? You had every opportunity to talk to me about how you felt, and instead you chose to betray me. This isn't just about your unhappiness, it's about our trust, our promises. You've shattered that." Tears welled up in her eyes as she desperately tried to defend herself. "I was afraid. I didn't want to lose you, but I felt like you weren't listening to me anymore. You were so focused on work and life, it felt like I was fading into the background." "Fading into the background," I shot back. "You think running off to another man is the answer? You could have come to me and we could have worked together on this. Instead, you took the coward's way out." The silence hung in the air, thick with tension. She looked defeated, and for the first time I saw a flicker of vulnerability in her. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have done it. I know I hurt you." "Sorry doesn't cut it, Emily," I replied, my voice steady. "You've torn our marriage apart, and it's not something that can just be fixed with an apology. I need time to think about what this means for us." She reached for my hand, but I pulled away. I couldn't bear to feel her touch, not now. "I need to figure out if I can trust you again," I said, my voice firm. "But know this, I won't tolerate betrayal. I won't be a second choice or a fallback option." Her tears fell freely now, and I felt a pang of sadness for the woman I once loved. But I couldn't let that cloud my judgment. I had to stay strong to keep my heart guarded. As she cried, I felt a mix of emotions crashing over me: anger, sadness, betrayal, but there was also a sense of clarity. I realized that this was the moment I had been waiting for. I had the power to decide the next step. I could choose to fight for the love we once had, or I could walk away and reclaim my life. The truth was, I was tired of being the one who cared more, the one who always put in the effort. I was ready to take control of my destiny, and that meant making some tough choices. As the confrontation wound down, I stood up, feeling a sense of resolve wash over me. I would not let this define me. I would rise above it. "Take some time to think about what you've done," I said, my voice steady. "I need space." I turned to leave the room, leaving her sobbing on the couch, but I knew it was time for me to take a step back and consider my next move. I was done with the lies, done with the deceit. Now it was time for a reckoning. After that night, everything felt different. The house, once filled with laughter and warmth, felt cold and hollow. Emily and I were like two strangers sharing the same space, tiptoeing around each other in a fragile silence. I slept in the guest room, attempting to find solace in the solitude, but every creak of the house echoed with memories of what we had lost. Days turned into weeks, and each moment felt like a countdown. I was torn between the urge to confront the situation head-on and the need to give myself time to process what had happened. I spent hours reflecting on our relationship, replaying memories in my mind, trying to decipher where it all went wrong. My trust was shattered, and I felt a creeping sense of betrayal settling in my bones. Emily tried to engage with me, asking if we could talk or if I was ready to work things out. I'd see her lingering in the doorway, her eyes filled with a mixture of hope and desperation. It made me uneasy. I wanted to scream that it was too soon, that the wounds were still fresh and raw. I couldn't just forget what she had done, yet part of me still clung to the remnants of our love. One evening, as I sat in the living room scrolling mindlessly through my phone, I received a text from Sarah. She wanted to check in on me and offered to meet up for coffee. I hesitated but finally agreed. After everything that had happened, I needed someone to talk to who wasn't involved in our mess. I needed an outside perspective, someone who could help me sort through my emotions without judgment. When we met at a local cafe, I felt the weight of the world lift a little. Sarah was compassionate and understanding, and I found myself opening up about everything, my anger, sadness, and confusion. I shared the details of Emily's affair, how I felt betrayed and lost. Sarah listened intently, offering her insights and occasionally sharing her own experiences. It was refreshing to unload my feelings. "I can't believe she would do this to you," Sarah said, shaking her head in disbelief. "You deserve better, and you have every right to feel hurt. But I can't help but wonder if there's still a part of you that wants to salvage this." I sighed, the question hanging in the air. "I don't know, Sarah. Part of me wants to believe we can work things out, but how do you rebuild trust after something like this? How do you go back to normal?" She leaned forward, her expression serious. "It's going to take a lot of time and effort from both of you. If you decide to work on it, you need to be clear about your boundaries and what you expect moving forward. If she truly wants to make amends, she has to prove it." Her words resonated with me. I realized that I didn't want to be the one fighting for a marriage that felt so broken. If we were going to make it, Emily had to be equally invested in repairing the damage. I needed to see genuine remorse and a commitment to change from her. After our coffee date, I returned home with a clearer mindset. I decided it was time to have another conversation with Emily. This time, I wasn't going to sugarcoat anything. I needed her to understand that I was willing to consider reconciliation, but only if she was ready to put in the work. That evening, I found her sitting on the couch, her head buried in her hands. As I entered the room, she looked up and I saw the exhaustion etched on her face. "Can we talk?" I asked, trying to maintain a level voice. "Is it about us?" she replied, her voice trembling. I nodded, taking a deep breath. "I've been thinking a lot about what happened. I can't pretend that everything is okay, but I also know that I don't want to throw everything away without giving it a chance." Her eyes widened and I could see a flicker of hope. "You mean that?" "Yes, but it comes with conditions. I can't just go back to how things were before. I need to know that you're willing to be honest and transparent moving forward. No more secrets, no more lies." Emily nodded fervently. "I promise I'll do whatever it takes. I don't want to lose you." I studied her face, searching for sincerity. "I need you to understand that trust isn't just going to magically reappear. It's going to take time. I need space to heal, and I need you to show me that you're committed to this." "I understand," she said, her voice steady. "I know I've messed up, but I want to work through this with you. I'll go to therapy, whatever it takes. I'll prove to you that I can be the wife you deserve." It was a start, but I felt a mixture of skepticism and cautious optimism. Part of me wanted to believe her, but another part still felt the sting of betrayal. "We need to set some boundaries," I said. "I don't want you to be friends with Derek anymore. If we're going to make this work, that has to end." She hesitated, and I could see the conflict in her eyes. I understand. I'll cut ties. I'll do it for us." We spent the next few hours talking about our feelings, expectations, and what we thought could help us heal. It wasn't easy, but it felt like a small step in the right direction. It was a fragile beginning, but I was willing to try. As I lay in bed that night, I felt a flicker of hope stirring within me. Maybe we could overcome this. Maybe we could rebuild. But deep down, I knew that the road ahead would be rocky. Forgiveness was a process, and I was still navigating my way through the emotional fallout of her betrayal. I had to be patient, both with myself and with Emily. It wouldn't be easy, but I was ready to face whatever came next. I was determined to take control of my life and my happiness, one step at a time. And I hoped that Emily was ready to do the same. The next few weeks were a delicate balancing act. Emily and I were navigating the aftermath of her betrayal with caution, and each day felt like a test. We were trying to create an environment where honesty could flourish, but the shadows of her infidelity loomed large over us. I was still deeply affected by what had happened, and while I was willing to give her a chance, I felt like I was constantly on guard. Emily took the initiative and signed up for therapy, which I appreciated. She insisted it was necessary for her to understand why she had made the choices she did. I could see her trying to make an effort, but it wasn't always easy for me to believe in her sincerity. There were moments when I would catch her looking at her phone and I'd feel a rush of anxiety. A tight knot would form in my stomach, and I'd fight the urge to check it myself, fearing what I might find. Our conversations began to shift from accusations to discussions about our future. We talked about the things we had neglected in our marriage, the little moments that had slipped away in the chaos of our lives. I found it refreshing to share our thoughts openly, but there was still an underlying tension. I was still grappling with trust, and it felt like a fragile scaffold holding us up. One evening, I decided to try something new. I proposed that we go out for dinner, a chance to reconnect away from the stress of home. It felt risky, but I thought maybe a change of scenery would help us both relax. Emily agreed, and we made plans to visit a restaurant we used to love. As we sat at the table, the ambience was warm, candles flickering softly between us. I watched as Emily sipped her wine, and for a brief moment I could see the woman I had fallen in love with. We reminisced about our early days together, laughing about the silly things we did, but the laughter felt tinged with sadness, like a bittersweet reminder of what we had lost. "Remember that time we got lost on our way to that concert?" she asked, her eyes sparkling. "Yeah, and we ended up at that weird diner instead." I chuckled, feeling a momentary reprieve from the heaviness that had settled in our lives. "Those were good times," she said softly. "I want to find that happiness again." As I looked at her, I felt a tumult of emotions. I wanted to believe her. I wanted us to find our way back to those moments of joy, but I couldn't ignore the reality of the past. The hurt was still fresh, and I wasn't sure if we could fully recover from it. After dinner, as we walked back to the car, Emily took my hand. I felt a mix of comfort and hesitation. Her touch was familiar, yet I was still haunted by what she had done. It was a reminder of how fragile the foundation of our relationship had become. When we got home, I noticed a text notification pop up on her phone. My heart raced as I tried to ignore the urge to look. I took a deep breath, reminding myself that I had to trust her, but the paranoia was hard to shake. I glanced over at Emily, who was distracted as she scrolled through her messages. I tried to focus on the conversation we were having, but it was difficult to concentrate with the image of Derek lurking in my mind. "Everything okay?" I asked, attempting to sound casual. "Yeah, just work stuff," she said quickly, but I could see her body tense up. It was a small moment, but it didn't escape me. It was the same reaction I'd seen before. The defensiveness felt familiar, and I couldn't help but feel the surge of doubt. That night, as I lay in bed, I battled with my thoughts. I wanted to trust her, but her past actions made it so difficult. I felt like a pendulum swinging between hope and despair, and it was exhausting. I needed clarity, a definitive answer about where we stood. The following day, in an attempt to ease my mind, I decided to meet with Sarah again. I needed to talk it out with someone who understood the magnitude of what I was experiencing. Over coffee, I recounted my dinner with Emily and my feelings of uncertainty. "It's progress, but I can see why you're still feeling uneasy," Sarah said. "Trust is not something that can be rebuilt overnight. It takes time, and you have to be patient with yourself." "I'm trying," I replied, rubbing my temples. "But I think about Derek all the time. What if she's still lying? How can I be sure she's not just telling me what I want to hear?" "Have you talked to her about your fears?" she asked gently. "No, I don't want to seem paranoid again," I said, feeling the frustration bubble up. "But it's there, lurking in the back of my mind." "Maybe you should," Sarah suggested. "It's important for her to know what you're feeling. If she truly wants to make this work, she should be open to discussing your concerns." I considered her words and realized she was right. I couldn't keep bottling up my feelings, and Emily needed to understand the depth of my hurt. I had to communicate my struggles while still allowing her the space to show me she was committed to change. That evening, I took a deep breath as I approached Emily. "Can we talk?" I asked as she was getting settled on the couch. Sure, she replied, looking at me with a hint of apprehension. I explained how I was feeling, how the shadows of doubt still haunted me, how the memories of her infidelity crept into my mind at the most unexpected moments. I needed her to know that it wasn't just about rebuilding our relationship, it was about rebuilding my trust in her. I want to work on this, I said earnestly, but I can't do it alone. You have to understand that I need to feel secure in this relationship again. Emily listened, her expression a mix of concern and determination. I understand. I want to be open with you. I don't want you to feel this way. I'll do whatever it takes to help rebuild that trust. As we talked, I felt a flicker of hope. It wasn't a magic fix, but it was a step in the right direction. I could see that she was willing to face the consequences of her actions and that she genuinely wanted to work on herself. We agreed to keep the lines of communication open and to check in with each other regularly about how we were feeling. It was a fragile truce, but it felt like progress. Trust would take time, but I realized that it was a journey we would have to take together. In the days that followed, I felt a slight shift in our dynamic. Emily was making genuine efforts to be more present, to include me in her life rather than keeping me at arm's length. But the underlying tension still existed, and I knew we had a long way to go. I reminded myself that healing was not linear. It would come with its share of ups and downs. And while I still felt the weight of her betrayal, I was committed to moving forward, one step at a time, toward a future that could still hold hope for us. As the weeks turned into months, Emily and I continued to navigate the rocky terrain of rebuilding our relationship. We found ourselves in a delicate dance, balancing vulnerability with the need for healing. There were good days, filled with laughter and light, and then there were days when the weight of betrayal would come crashing back down, leaving me feeling suffocated once more. Emily was committed to her therapy, and I could see the effort she was putting in. She was learning to communicate more openly and to express her feelings without deflecting. It was a stark contrast to how she had been before, and part of me wanted to believe that she was genuinely trying to change. But the scars of the past were still fresh, and I would be lying if I said I didn't have moments of doubt. One evening, as we sat on the couch watching a movie, I felt the tension in the air shift. Emily turned to me, her expression serious. "Can we talk about the future?" she asked, her voice steady. I looked at her, unsure of where this conversation might lead. "Sure, what's on your mind?" "I know it's been a long road and I want to make sure we're both on the same page," she said, her eyes searching mine. "I want us to be better, and I want to know what you see for us moving forward." Her question caught me off guard. I had been so caught up in the day-to-day of our recovery that I hadn't seriously considered what our future might hold. I took a moment to gather my thoughts. "I want to believe we can rebuild," I said slowly. "But it's going to take time. Trust doesn't just come back overnight, and I still have a lot of healing to do." "I understand," she replied, nodding. "I want to be there for you, whatever that looks like. I'm sorry for what I did, and I want to earn your trust again." We talked late into the night, discussing our hopes, our fears, and the steps we would need to take to ensure we didn't fall back into the same patterns that had led us to this point. I expressed my desire for transparency, to feel involved in her life, and not to let work or other distractions pull her away from us. She listened, absorbing my words, and I could see her determination to do better. As we settled into a new routine, I made a conscious effort to check in with my feelings regularly. I realized that while the journey toward healing was fraught with challenges, it also provided opportunities for growth, both personally and as a couple. I began to rediscover elements of our relationship that I had missed. We started taking small trips together, revisiting places that held significance for us, and creating new memories. Those moments helped us reconnect, reminding me of the love we had once shared. There were still moments of doubt, of course, but they began to feel more manageable. One evening, as we sat on the back porch watching the sun dip below the horizon, I turned to Emily and said, "You know, I feel like we're getting somewhere. It's not perfect, but it gives me hope." She smiled, the warmth of the moment settling around us. "I feel it too. I just want you to know that I'm committed to making this work, no matter how long it takes. I don't want to lose you again." Her sincerity touched me, and for the first time in a while, I felt a genuine sense of optimism. We had endured the storm together, and while the damage was significant, there was still a foundation worth salvaging. I also recognized the importance of creating boundaries. I made it clear that while I was open to rebuilding, I needed to feel secure in our relationship. I suggested that we both continue our individual therapy sessions alongside couples therapy, an avenue that could help us better understand ourselves and each other. As summer turned to fall, the days continued to blend together as we focused on our healing journey. I had moments when I felt the old pangs of jealousy rear their ugly heads, but I reminded myself that this was part of the process. I was learning to navigate these feelings instead of letting them control me. One weekend, while we were out running errands, we stumbled upon a local charity event. It piqued our interest, and without hesitation, we decided to volunteer together. It was refreshing to work side by side, pouring our energy into something meaningful. I could feel the connection growing stronger as we found joy in helping others. As we wrapped up our day at the event, I looked over at Emily, and the sight of her beaming smile filled me with warmth. I realized that this journey was about more than just healing from betrayal. It was about rediscovering the love that had brought us together in the first place. There would always be scars left behind from the hurt, but they would serve as reminders of the challenges we had overcome. I learned that love, in its truest form, could withstand the test of adversity if both partners were willing to put in the work. In reflecting on our journey, I felt a profound sense of growth, not just for Emily, but for myself as well. I had learned to be more self-aware, to communicate my feelings openly, and to stand my ground when it came to my needs. I realized that I deserved a healthy relationship, built on trust and mutual respect. As we drove home that night, I glanced at Emily, who was humming softly to the music playing on the radio. A sense of peace settled over me. Perhaps we could emerge from this stronger than before. I knew that moving forward wouldn't be without its challenges, but I felt fortified by the love and commitment we were willing to invest in each other. Life is unpredictable, and while the past would always be a part of our story, I was excited to see where our future would lead. Together, we were not just survivors of betrayal, we were partners navigating the path of rebuilding, and I was ready to embrace whatever came next.